You're always so smiley when we come on. I figured with today's subject, I'd be cringy. Because it is cringy. This is the worst ever.
Well, before we get on that topic, so I'm going to share my screen with you this morning. And then you can tell me what you think about this. Have you seen this?
Imagine that. No, I haven't seen that, but imagine that.
So our friend Cindy Bird came out with her federal audit yesterday. And so basically she said that the state is now in the business of practicing a no-bid contract.
Wow. Well, I wonder.
But here's my favorite. So Shelley Zumwalt, who is Governor Stitt's choice. Remember, Governor Stitt likes to find somebody and then appoint them for everybody, for every agency that he can, right? That's his thing.
Yeah.
So we don't need to have separate ones. I'll just find one person I trust and stick them in everywhere. So Shelley Zumwalt has been the Oklahoma Employment Security Commission. And then he made her tourism and recreation secretary. And then she is going to be the secretary of OMS. And so basically what ended up happening was, so they found out, this is what Drummond says, this level of self-dealing represents an unforgivable breach of trust that disqualifies Ms. Zumwalt from overseeing the expenditure of our tax dollars. She should resign immediately and cooperate fully with my office as I seek to determine whether any Oklahoma statutes were violated. So basically, she ended up getting a contract with the software company, where her husband is vice president.
Oh, wow.
Gave them almost $10 million in business, and then says, no, Cindy Bird is wrong. We set up a firewall between me and my husband.
Oh, yeah. Firewall. Maybe, I know what that firewall was. It's probably a mask. That's probably what the firewall was.
That's how good it was. It was a mask.
Yeah.
Well, here's the interesting thing to me, and here's how I feel like this is where we are today. So this Shelley Zumwalt comes out at a news conference and says, I will not resign. We did everything right, blah, blah, blah. So if she had any kind of a clue, just like any of these people who work in government, who are just constantly in and out of government because government is just their paycheck, they live in a government bubble, and they don't understand that in ethics world, there's where the rest of us basically have to live. There's a situation in which you would never do any kind of business with somebody that you knew, or certainly not a family member,
Yeah.
because even if you weren't benefiting, it doesn't look good.
Yeah.
Number one, and nepotism in these state agencies is basically illegal. So here it is that she's doing business as the head of the Oklahoma Employment Security Commission with a software company that her husband just happens to be vice president of, but yet nothing went on there.
Well, it's one thing if it's just like, you know, a couple $100, $1,000 here or there, but when you're talking that kind of money on top of we know how that good old boy system and the nepotism is rampant in this state.
And these were federal funds, taxpayer.
Yeah.
These are yours and my dollars. You know, it's just like, so anyway, I just thought I'd start out with that because the reason why is our guest is, I think, learning how government thinks, and government doesn't think the way that we think.
Yeah.
And it just kills me that she says, I will not resign because there was a firewall. Lady, in ethics world, you're so far out it. You should have just stood there and gone, you know, that's probably wasn't a good look for me. You know, I'll bow out. But no, she's just going to double down because that's the way it goes. So even if there wasn't anything going on, the fact that she doesn't understand that most people would go, ew, is just beyond.
Well, just the perception of corruption, the perception of all of that. I mean, but that's where we are. We've got moral decay in this society. There is no more ethics. You know, none of that stuff.
There is for us, because we'll get drilled on it. It's anybody who's in government. Government is their own thing now.
Yeah. Well, and you know, we'll probably get into that with the EPA. You know, as long as you work for the government, you can break all these laws and do all this bad stuff and work in this business and promote this business. But if you're a regular person doing that, you'd be in jail in a matter of days.
Yes.
Well, too bad. There we go.
There's
just another example.
Yep. So our guest this morning happens to be a friend of mine. Known her quite a long time through the homeschooling community. Yay, homeschooling. She lives out here with us, and we're going to talk a little bit about what she does. But I'm going to bring on Saundra Traywick. Good morning, Saundra Traywick. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Pretty good. So we wanted to have you on this morning because there are, bad stuff.
Yeah.
You know, some bad stuff. So let's just talk a little bit about you. I'm going to throw this first on because I want everybody to see the lower right picture. So this is you and your family on what looks like a horse, but this is not a horse. This is a
mammoth donkey, American mammoth donkey.
And who
Kramer.
had these?
Yeah, his name's Kramer.
So didn't George Washington, wasn't that who?
Yeah, he actually brought over the first ones, I think, from the King of France, and they were used to create the big mules that helped settle our country. So they've kind of fallen out of favor because they eat a lot and they're a big expensive pet for a lot of people. And nobody needs them. They have tractors, so they're critically endangered now, and we milk them. So
what?
We got the first 3 to milk for our daughter when she got an autoimmune disease from strep that attacked her brain, and we saw really amazing results with donkey milk. So of course you're going to get donkeys and milk them. Like, who wouldn't?
Lots of people, actually.
That sounds too natural. That doesn't sound
right
enhanced enough.
Well, you know, what's funny is I've been over to Saundra's dozens of times. These things, they're just the sweetest things. Oh, and you know, let's disclose this information, Saundra. You pawned off some donkeys on me.
Yeah. All of our friends end up with donkeys that didn't work out.
And I love mine. Mine are not mammoth. Mine are just regular sized donkeys. But
they're great. No, the only reason we gave them to you is because my husband didn't like having to like be on the ground trying to milk a little tiny donkey.
And then it's like,
yeah, it was not. It was when we were first starting out. We were desperate, you know.
yeah.
We didn't have it all down.
Yeah, isn't that funny? Because I just realized the other day, I think Stinker, who is the baby, is now 10.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, that's a deal.
Yeah.
So you started out milking donkeys for your daughter. And then
Mhm.
what ended up happening was it kind of burgeoned into this big thing. Tell us a little bit about this.
So we started out for our daughter, and you know, because it's your kid, and you see something that helps them, and it's called Panda's disease, which people can look that up. It's not just strep that triggers it; lots of different viruses and all kinds of different, you know, immune triggers can trigger these kids into having these symptoms, and so they're expensive. They're expensive to feed. They don't make much milk, and so I started making skincare too, because you start looking into all the triggers and what's causing all these problems. So I started making our own soap out of donkey milk. In Europe, it's a big thing to use. Yeah, that's it. Donkey milk and skincare. And I wanted to clean up all the environmental factors. So then our skincare, oh yeah, that's a lot sold out. I need to work on that.
Well, you know what? I think
So-
that's a pretty good advertisement, because
Yeah.
if they're sold out, people must really like them.
Yeah. And I've been into all this other stuff, so I need to get back to making skincare and stay out. But anyway, yeah. So, but once you start to look at all the environmental stuff, and you're like, well, I have to cut out all these other things. I can't just depend on one thing. I need to also clean up our environment. So skincare was part of that. And then we actually started, more and more people wanted donkey milk from us, but we just have raw milk. And so they have to come to the farm to get it, because we started out, we're like, we're not going to break the law. We're going to do this right. You cannot
Okay,
ship
but
raw
that's
milk.
the point. So in Oklahoma, you're not allowed to sell raw milk, correct?
No, you can sell
Okay.
raw milk. You cannot advertise that you sell
Oh.
raw milk.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's a little tricky there.
Yeah.
But I looked, because I was like, I'm not going to break the law, and there's nothing about donkey milk on the books in Oklahoma. Imagine that. So it was cow milk and goat milk. You can't advertise unless you have a USDA grade A barn. Long story. So, you know,
That
nothing
is a
about
long
donkey milk.
story.
Yeah, that's a whole other story, a whole other podcast, and we can save it for another day.
Yeah,
But-
we know how fair and upstanding the USDA is.
Right. So
Because they
It's-
don't confiscate your milk and then take it and then extort it back to you, right, Saundra?
oh,
That never happens.
that never
Okay,
happened.
so let's go on.
Wrong agency, but you know, whatever. So anyway, we move out here, clean environment, want to have a safe place for our kids, raise our donkeys, do our thing. And one day there's this horrific stench. And I'm like, what is that? I mean, I grew up on a farm, never, ever smelled anything like this. It's like combo of death, chemicals, blood, poop. Am I missing anything there? That's about it.
See, I've never been able to actually determine any particular smell in it, because usually it forces my eyes closed and then I want to gag. So I can't,
Right.
there's nothing really going on in my head other than throw up or leave, or throw up
Right.
and leave.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, these sensations are our body telling us,
Right.
this is poison, get out. And problem is, you live here, you can't get out. So, and we farm, we have to get out. And this literally shuts down everything when it happens, because there's no way we can be out there and milk our animals when this has happened. So
So
Yeah.
let's talk a little bit about what happens. So it's Oklahoma City and Edmond Municipal.
oh no.
No,
Oh.
okay.
Well, in our area, Oklahoma City and Edmond.
Okay.
Midwest City sells theirs to the public for their gardens to grow their, it's listed as, compost. And there was a picture with growing tomatoes in it. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I'm gonna play a
But
little bit of devil's advocate just because it's so much fun. But isn't this just so people know, we're talking about the sewage that comes out.
I guess we didn't clarify that.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is the sewage stream there. So there's a solid stream and there's a liquid stream. So they separate those out. This is the solid stream materials that they call, it's part of wastewater. They got all these fancy terms for all this stuff. But isn't it, you look at the packaging. So all these sewer treatment places, they basically repackage this stuff. They sell it, they make it look pretty, they market it, they say, oh, it's eco-friendly, it's perfectly natural, this is sustainable, this is organic, but
they use all the buzzwords.
Yeah, it is completely toxic. This is poison. This is 100% toxic poison, period, in all capacity. And if I can say one more thing, we have it's so funny because I'm sure we'll hit on this, but you've got these agencies like the EPA. So you've got the Clean Water Act, you've got the Clean Air Act. There's nothing that protects the soil in any capacity whatsoever. So, and just so people realize, I want you to know that everything that's industrial, by law, they have to dump it in the sewer. So anything that comes out of any of these manufacturing places, whatever, by law, they have to put it in the sewer. That sewer goes right into these products that they're just dispersing right into our land, right into our crops, right into it is unbelievable. I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, we needed that background because I think we were going too far before people really understood what was going on. So basically, they take the dry poop products that comes out of the wastewater and they package it up, and then they put it in these great big trucks that look like petroleum trucks. You know what I'm talking about? The kind that look like they're carrying gas or something. And they take it out to farms and then they spew this stuff. They have these great big nozzles and they just spew it all over the ground. And there are all sorts of rules and regulations. You're not supposed to do it within how many feet of a water source?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, close. You can't have runoff into the water system at all.
Yeah, so there's supposed to be, I think it's something like a minimum of 3 feet or something, but they always put it all the way up, to the side. They're supposed to till it under. The ones around here never till it under. It just sits on the top. And the smell that comes with this is
well, if I could say one more thing, I grew up in the Panhandle, ton of feedlots. My dad, he ran National Beef Packers, and I'd always be like, Dad, you just smell those feedlots, and he's like, oh, that's the smell of money, son. And that's no more true. Think about the money that is associated with the disposal of this just 100% toxic poison. You want to talk about a lobby in the highest levels of the government. This is 100% government corruption.
Yeah, because they save millions.
Yeah.
They save millions by dumping it on farmland instead of properly disposing of it like the toxic waste it is.
And before we go on, let's just make sure that people understand, Saundra. So I will just go back to the last time. I'm on virtually a corner. So the lot across the street from us put down a whole bunch of this stuff, humanure, biosludge, whatever you want to call it. It was about July, I guess, when they did it. So it was like right in the heat of the summer. The smell was so bad, we couldn't even go outside because it would come into your nose. It would make your nose run. Your eyes would water. You couldn't really breathe properly. And then we had so many flies. I've never, like clouds
Mhm.
of flies, and they were on everything. And so between the smell and the flies, it was absolutely we couldn't even stand it. We wanted to like go figure out a way to go to a hotel
Right.
because
Yeah.
it was absolutely disgusting. So that's just the smell alone. So Saundra, tell us about what all is in it and what the problems
Well, first I
are.
need to correct you because you shouldn't be complaining. That's your neighbor's property rights. It's their right
Oh.
to do that to you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, here's what's going to happen the next time my neighbor decides on to exercise his property rights. I'm going to pretend like it's 1965 and I'm going to chain my ass to that thing and make them come get me off and get in the news because I'm so sick of it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well,
Okay.
no, unfortunately, like this pits neighbor against neighbor, and that
It does.
happen. So what's happening now around the United States and really around the world is that farmers have taken this and the government told them it was safe. And
The government says it's safe. Thank you,
Well-
government.
exactly. They told them it was safe, beneficial fertilizer. And so some of them believe that, I guess, or they wouldn't be taking this. And so now, especially, it started kind of in Maine. That was kind of the hot spot. And so people have ignored it when I've been shouting from the rooftops because, oh, that's just Maine. Well, then Michigan and Texas is the latest one. And the one in Texas, so a lot of them, they actually
Well,
had.
let's stop and go. Let's go
Yeah.
a little bit more in a line. So
Right.
you have this donkey dairy, and you have people come to the farm. You do events at your farm,
Yeah.
and people can't come when they're dumping biosludge around you.
No, absolutely not. I mean, we're always like on pins and needles because we plan these events that people come from other states. They fly here. We have doctors speak, all of this. It's huge. It's like a 6-month production to get one going. Hundreds of people here, kids with autoimmune diseases, all of this. So if they were to put that down, I would have to cancel it all in a moment's notice because you don't get any notification that your neighbor, and by neighbor, we're talking, they can be a mile away.
Oh,
and if the wind's blowing, you still can't be outside. So, there's, I think only like 12 chemicals in this are regulated. So we're talking about antibiotics, pharmaceuticals. Farmers kind of make jokes apparently about finding the syringes from people shooting up drugs in the soil. Yeah, not soil is a loose term here. So now that we're not doing surgical abortions in the state, chemical abortions are happening. Well, guess where all that goes?
Yeah.
Down the drain. And I was originally just blogging about my anger about all of this. And Jenny calls me and she's like, well, why don't you just get this banned and then we'll take it to the state and we'll fix it. And so I say she activated me into my environmental extremist state here. But we thought it'd be easy. This is obviously bad. Let's change it. And we had no idea the fight we were going to be up against.
Well, and let me stop you there too. And you'll have to correct me because it's been a while since I've been in the middle of this. Farmers get paid to take this, right?
No, what I understand is it's free.
Yeah.
Oh, it's free.
But you're getting your land disked at least twice for free. So calculate the cost of diesel and labor and all of that. So I would say they're getting paid. So they are getting free fertilizer.
Because fertilizer is expensive.
Oh,
it's not cheap.
Yeah. So they're saving all this money. And I have heard in other areas they have to pay for it, but it's minimal. And from what I understand here, it is free.
Yeah, because I remember when we banned it in Luther, we had at least one farmer show up who was mad because they were like, well, are you going to pay me back for all of the nitrogen fertilizer that I'm going to have to apply?
Right. Yeah. And what's really not fair, I mean, there's lots of not fair, but these farmers are selling their hay, their corn, their products that they got all this stuff free for the same price as the other farmers who are buying their fertilizer, doing it right, And nobody gets to know the difference unless you're educated and you are looking up, because they can lie to you. Even if you ask, do you use sludge? They can lie.
Yep.
And I'd like to just add real quick. So you've got your list there, which I just want people to realize, you know, every single thing that goes down the toilet. So you mentioned, you know, blood and all that stuff, but just think about the amount of other chemicals. I mean, I've seen tests where literally there's been upwards of 80,000 chemicals detected, you know, and a lot of these are those, like you've got PFAs on that list of forever chemicals, but you got to remember, think about the amount of prescription drugs, the amount of endocrine disruptors, the amount of just all this other stuff that can go in there. I mean, that's just going straight onto your land, straight into the crops. There's all the microplastics. I mean, it is unbelievable just that we even allow that to even happen. But you know what's so funny is I read one thing and they said, and you may mention this later, Saundra, but they said the fastest way to identify like a field that's had these types of biosolids, you know, dumped on it is they can test the whatever vegetation or whatever product comes off of it. They can test it, and if it shows Benadryl in it, they know that's been treated. So all those chemicals are being absorbed, you know, by whatever crop is on there, and then it's coming right back to your table, you know, within a matter of time.
Well, and Oklahoma is one of 13 states that actually allows you to grow food in this. I just recently learned that, and it blew my mind. Like, we're one of 13. Go Oklahoma. That's great. So,
well, let's talk about, so on your slide, you're talking about PFAs. We got a lot of people watching this morning. PFAs are, to explain what PFAs are.
Okay. I think the next slide should kind of go into that.
Oh, sorry. Thank you.
There we go. Yeah. So PFAs, they also commonly call them PFOS or PFOAs or just forever chemicals. These started out since the 1940s. They came up with this great little chemical concoction and figured out it made things not stick. So, you know, Teflon, your favorite non-stick, you know, rain jacket, all of those things. PFOS. Your receipts that are slick, that's probably PFOS. Firefighting foam, big deal. Like, I recently found out 2 out of 3 firefighters die of cancer. It's in their gear. So as everything degrades, it ends up, they breathe it. And so, yeah, all of this stuff is happening, but those products break down. You know, how many of us own a pan from the 1940s? Well, I have an iron skillet.
Yeah, for sure.
But most people, their products break down. And so when those products break down, they end up in the wastewater stream. Toilet paper even has PFOS in it. So, I mean, that's obviously going down the drain. And then it ends up in sewage sludge or humanure or whatever term you want to call it. And very tiny, tiny amounts can make people very sick. And that's the next slide. So I got that little graphic, and it basically shows you all the different areas that they're aware of that it can cause problems, even at low amounts. So some people have seen the movie Dark Waters, where they go into this DuPont, 3M. They were 2 of the big contributors to this problem. And turns out they knew it and they covered it up. So now they're in some major lawsuits for manufacturing these chemicals. Even the states are now jumping onto the lawsuit bandwagon. Cancers, pregnancy problems, all kinds of stuff. So
I like this. This is such a great graphic because it explains how this happens.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, all you have to do is just look at it. So the consumer goods go into the, you know, sewer, right? Mm-hmm. Humans exposed, foods exposed, goes. Here's our little trucks dragging the humanure in here in the environment. I mean, unfortunately, these chemicals are becoming, oh my goodness. I mean, in everything, everywhere.
Yeah. Right. Well, and if I can make one more point too, this is not filtered in any way. Even your regular tap water that's coming back to your house, it may be sanitized. It is not filtered. There's still aspects of all those chemicals back in your tap water, but the solid side of this, there is absolutely zero filter on any of this.
Right. And Oklahoma does not test any of their sludge for PFAS, along with a whole lot of other things they're not testing for, but they're not testing for PFAS. And we're sitting back and going, we're not going to test anything, and we're going to wait until the EPA tells us what to do.
So just a little quick side note story. So my friend Nancy and I were going out to we wanted to buy some hay, had to buy some hay. And so we always ask, do you put humanure on your property? And we got this one person that we called about hay, and this is over in the Oakdale area. Any of you who are watching, over in the Oakdale area. And the guy says, he gets into this argument with me. Yeah, it's great. When they come out and test, they test, and it always has plenty of protein. It has plenty of nitrogen. I've got all the testing from that. And so I can tell you exactly how much stuff is in this. And I said, well, but what about some of the other things like the forever chemicals and about, bacteria and hormones and all, well, you sound like you're from the EPA, and you're just like, so farmers, I think, have, anymore, I'm not like a fan. I mean, there are so many farmers who really don't care what they put on there so long as they're getting it cheap and they're not having to pull it out of their own pocket.
No, let's not call them farmers. I'm a farmer. Let's just not use the same. I'm a farmer, and I'm not going to use that terminology for them. I have a family of farmers, and they're responsible, and they would never use this, because if you are responsible stewards of your land, you will not put this on there. And I'm done giving them excuses. Oh, they didn't know, whatever. I'm sorry. And the problem is they say, well, right now I'm getting free fertilizer, and they're leasing the land and not telling the owner of the land what they're doing to the land.
Exactly what happened to us across the road. That very same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So what responsibility do they have? And they don't have to report this. I mean, all of the stuff that goes into this is insane. And when you start digging into this, it's appalling. And I cannot believe more people are not speaking up and outraged.
So, just talking, this one's particularly talking about, oh, good night. Wow. I mean, this stuff just does not go away.
Right. They're called forever chemicals for a reason. So just like they build up in the human body and bioaccumulate, they bioaccumulate in our land. And I really don't know if people understand how an aquifer works, and that their well is not just their well. Like, we are all sharing this. Thousands of people share what goes into our water. And, from the soil, it filters down into the water. And I actually have talked to the DEQ multiple times. And one time he said, someone there said that, when people make as big of a fuss as you do, we usually just stop putting it around them. And he said, but you've got some really great draining soils near you. And I said, draining into the aquifer.
Yeah.
Well, it's not really that bad. I mean, yeah.
Luther, in some places in Luther, we're sitting at water table level.
Mm-hmm.
Luther is extremely low. That's part of the reason why they built Lake Arcadia, is because Luther kept flooding because our water table is so high. So that's part of the reason why, you and I worked together to get it banned in Luther, because this is ridiculous. That stuff just percolates right, because it goes right down essentially on the top of the water table and right into our water. But the trick is it may not. I mean, we're all on the same aquifer. What is the name? The Ogallala is further north,
We're
isn't
the
it?
Garber Wellington.
Garber Wellington, that's where we are. And so many people use Garber Wellington. I mean, so once it's in there, it doesn't matter where you live, so long as you're sitting over the top of the Garber Wellington, which is most of Oklahoma, then
Oh, but
hello.
get this. This is a little trick. Oklahoma City municipality, they dump their crap out in eastern Oklahoma County over the Garber Wellington aquifer.
Right.
Guess where Oklahoma City refuses to get their water?
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, they do not drink the Garber Wellington. They sit on top of it. They are over the Garber Wellington.
That's
And
right,
they are-
because they have Lake Hefner and Lake Canton, and then another one that they draw water from.
they're buying water across the state and piping it
Interesting.
into Oklahoma City. So yeah, when we get to the next slides, I mean, it's getting ugly. Like things are about to hit the fan. The humanure is about to hit the fan.
Okay, so biosolids equal increased PFAS contamination, right? Because it's
Right.
inhaled. That's the other thing. Let's point out again, when we're all smelling that horrible crap, we're inhaling the stuff.
Yeah.
But then if our animals eat the hay that was grown in it, then the animals get it. Then we eat the animals, we get it from them. So
And we're breathing it.
Yeah.
So we're breathing PFAS. We're breathing forever chemicals. And
yes, Amber, they do
Our-
let us grow with that in that.
yeah, Oklahoma allows food to be grown in it. Don't buy Midwest Cities compost. Just going to drop that there. So, you know, if you're breathing it, and we go inside and we try to like limit exposure, but our animals can't do that. And so they're also getting it in the water and in the air. And if you're not responsible, from your hay. And, you know, we do everything we can to limit our exposure, our animals' exposure, and our family's exposure to all kinds of chemicals. I mean, I don't have a microwave in my house. I'm weird. We don't ever cook something in plastic. You know, why would we expose ourselves to those chemicals?
Right.
And then neighbors, whoever says it's their right to do this to us, no. It's about time we draw a line in the humanure and stop this crap.
Absolutely, because we have as much right to enjoyment of our property as they have a right to put anything on it. And that's where the two things have to stop. You can do whatever you want, but once it affects me, that's it.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So we've talked a little bit about this. You want to go over some of the articles that you have on this slide?
Right. So the top left, that farmer, he breaks my heart. He was in Maine, 100-year-old dairy, and they told him sludge was safe, and he used it as fertilizer on his farm. And then they came in, oh, we need to test milk because he had a dairy. We need to start testing milk. Oh, sure. He's a good dairy farmer. And so he let him test his milk. And then they came back and it was crazy, crazy high in PFAS, forever chemicals. So they shut him down. And turns out his blood is crazy high in forever chemicals.
No.
And I believe I'm not sure. I think he also has major health problems now, maybe cancer. But they shut him down. I believe, got rid of all of his cows and then put in a crazy expensive filtration system. You know, people put in a whole house filtration system, but you try to filter the water for a huge dairy herd. So gets rid of the cows, puts in a new water filtration system, buys hay from someone else's farm that's not used sludge. And it was clean for a little while, their milk, and then it was contaminated again.
Oh,
And
wow.
he's just ruined. Like he cannot milk his cows. It's so devastating. So then the other one right there is a nice black Angus cow. And that farmer also used sludge. Michigan that time was told it was safe. And then the government came in, we need to test your beef. Started testing his beef, shut him down. And he was like, what am I supposed to do? Well, you can't kill your cows because you can't dispose of them. Your cows are toxic waste. Yeah. And you're just going to have to keep feeding them but you can't butcher them and you can't sell them. And he was trying to do the whole grass fed, because it's grass fed. Like, you're buying someone from grass fed, and if you don't ask them, that grass could be fed with sludge.
Yeah.
So that guy's devastated. Next one, South Carolina, I believe her well's contaminated. Another guy, he's also Maine Dairy Farm, the one in the red sweater. I believe he just got 1 load of hay, and he was an organic farm, like certified organic. He bought hay from someone that he was told it was organic, and they had used sludge at some point at that farm. And that hay was so high in PFAS, it shut him down, all of his products, for a year until they could get it out. The one above, I think she was another Maine farmer. And then the one on the right, the lead report, that is right outside of Fort Worth, Texas. And two farms that had, I believe, beef cows and nice ranches. They had their neighbors, they said there was, sludge dumped on their neighbor's farm by Synagro, a company that handles this. And now their calves are dying. The woman has tumors on her spine. Their water's contaminated. Their pets are dying. Their fish are dying. And so they're filing a lawsuit against, I think I've read it's a criminal lawsuit, but I'm not sure where they are in the process now, against Synagro, the company that they're like, they were responsible for this, and they should have told the farmers and made sure it was safe.
Well, Synagro is the organization that came out when we tried to ban it in Luther, and literally came out and tried to argue us into not banning it.
Yes. Yeah. Wasn't he all the way from California?
Oh, yes. Came all the way from California to come to a Luther town meeting to tell us to ban it. Now, how bad is that?
That's when you know that you're onto something big.
Yep. I think so too.
Yeah.
So there's a permit for Lincoln County.
Mm-hmm. So where the red arrow is, you can see the applicator's name, which at first, when this person gave these to me, in their public record, I was like, oh, so it's this Samuel, whatever. And no. They don't put the name of the person getting the sludge on the permit. That's the Synagro, somebody official.
Employee.
Yeah, somebody employee's name.
Yeah.
So I was like, where do you actually see the name of the person that's accepting the sludge? Well, normally you don't. They just put sort of general directions, like go east this far and then west.
Highway 77 west on 880. Yeah.
Yeah. This time, I guess somebody accidentally put in the person's name.
Oh, isn't that a representative?
Maybe it's somebody else with the same name.
Huh. I think I thought he lived out there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think so.
That's
so Representative Kevin Wallace then does this. This is an application then, right? Wow. Okay. All right. So,
well, okay,
and then it says
slide
today. Okay, sure.
Synagro, same company on that permit. Synagro, same company in Texas. That's interesting.
Synagro,
they're
same
suing.
company that came here to Luther to try to shut us down.
There you go.
So what is this bill what is this about?
So we have tried, backstory, 3 bills now at the state capitol with Senator Shane Jett to try. First, we were like, we're just going to ban this stuff. This is wrong. Oh, they killed that bill right out the gate. So the last session, we did 2 more bills. Senator Shane Jett, he's just championing for us up there. And one of them was to make them test for PFAS, for forever chemicals in sludge, and for these abortion chemicals that could cause all kinds of infertility in our animals and our people and all that. That's what they do. And they killed that bill right out the gate. And we had another bill that just would have made them make a public map. So you don't have to go search through these paper permits like the one we just saw. A public map online that would say these are sewage sludge sites and the date that they were put down. And they killed that bill. So the other day, Senator Jett texted me, hey, check out this House Bill 2305 on PFAS. And originally I was like, I glanced at it, I was like, oh, awesome. They're doing a bill to regulate PFAS. This is great news. And he's like, read it. I wish I should know better. You know, you give it a name, it sounds good, and everybody votes for it. So the bill, it's unbelievable. It takes away all liability from the big cities that have been dumping sludge on us.
Of course.
The big corporations like Synagro and the biosolids users. So the farmers that actually accepted
for
this.
God's sakes.
Yeah. Including any legislators that have used it.
Oh, okay. And the legislators are passing this bill. So, wow. Didn't we talk about the whole Shelley Zumwalt thing earlier? These people are seriously.
Yeah. And if I can say something else, you know, sometimes you get a lot of these eco, you know, greenies, and, you know, they completely dismiss this aspect of pollution, toxicity, you know, the whole 9 yards, or they blame it on capitalism. But that's not really what this is. 100% corruption. 100%. Doesn't matter if you're in communist China, who's the worst polluters and doing this stuff in the world, or you're here. This is 100% corruption at the highest government levels to just allow this to happen.
Yeah. And I'm going to bounce off what you said, because you're right. So if you didn't remember at the beginning, Saundra had this kind of tongue-in-cheek slide of her and the kids and Walt, and it was that you were some like eco-terrorist or something. I don't.
Oh no, the term they use for us is environmental extremists against farmers and ranchers.
Okay, all right. So there's a difference, but here's, I think, that the way that it's ended up working out in favor of all of these people who want to use this stuff to the detriment of the people around them. Mm-hmm. Like my neighbors, like Kevin Wallace, like whoever. So originally there was this whole, you know, you would think of PETA, you know, they'd go out and throw blood on people's, you know, fur coats and that kind of thing. Right. And you did at one point in the East, you remember the owl, and that you had people chaining themselves to tractors to keep them from chopping down trees and that kind of thing. So that all did happen. Now, fast forward, and we're people who are saying, look, there are animals that are literally dying of this. I mean, the babies can't withstand it. So you see a lot of baby livestock deaths because this water, you know, is so polluted, and it kills them before it even kills, you know, the parent. Now we're the bad guys because we don't want things in our being dumped, specifically because they know they're doing it. Synagro knows what's in that stuff. EPA knows what's in this stuff. Everybody knows what's in this stuff. But
except the public.
Right.
And some farmers who, like that crazy one in Oakdale, you know, who's like, well, you're just an environmental extremist. You like the EPA, click, and hangs up on me. I don't like the EPA. I'm sorry. I don't even like DEQ. But here's the problem. Somebody's going to have to do something about this because it is killing people. It is. What about, oh gosh. Wasn't it in the 80s when they had Silkwood? Remember Silkwood?
Oh, yeah.
The movie Silkwood. Mm-hmm. I mean, people get all up in arms about this kind of stuff, but then they don't realize that it's happening outside their back door, and they're probably eating beef or chicken or something that's been raised on an area that's had this crap dumped all over everywhere.
Yeah. So one of the best ways to detox a woman from PFAS is to give birth, because the baby takes most of it.
No.
Wow.
Yeah, Saundra, that's awful.
Yeah, I know. So yeah, going on from that.
Sorry.
This House bill No, I mean, I'm the one that got distracted on the whole detox thing. That's another podcast. We can talk about detoxing. So this House bill is protecting the entities that have done the contaminating. There's another one that will protect the big giant chicken coops, Tyson cargo, those from contaminating with their sludge. I believe they're both related to PFAS, and that's the root of both of them. This one even says it's PFAS. So at the Senate Energy meeting, the executive director of the DEQ spoke up and defended what this bill was and the purpose of this bill. And
No, defended it.
oh, yeah. Well, you remember the DEQ came out to Luther and defended sludge.
Oh, no, that's for sure. Yeah.
So this is, defended the bill and what the purpose was, because these are passive receivers, poor city of Oklahoma City, poor Edmond, poor Norman, poor Tulsa, all these big cities that dump it out on the poor people that they have given no voice. And if your representative is using it, or multiple legislators are using it, you don't have a voice at the Capitol at all if you don't like this.
No.
Because they're representing their own interests.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. It's dark money all over again.
Right. Yeah. And they have to be seeing what's happening in Fort Worth. And so these companies that handle it are like, hey, you better put in some legislation. I mean, I'm just speculating. If I was a company handling it, I would want the state to put in a bill that would make sure that I don't get sued and I can continue business as usual.
Sure.
And if I was a city, same deal.
Oh, and then DEQ.
Yeah. So this is a video of, again, the executive director, and I'm just going to quote right now. EPA is making some moves on some of these compounds that aren't really fully fleshed out yet, but they're looking at it under Superfund for 2 of the compounds and under hazardous waste rules for a few of the compounds, and then goes on. EPA has not identified real solutions for this material in terms of disposal technologies, and on and on. So
did you hear basically him say, we're not going to do anything about it because nobody knows anything to do about it?
Well, people need to watch the video themselves and interpret it for themselves. But essentially, we know that there are compounds. We're talking about a PFAS bill. So we're talking about some of these PFAS potentially ending up being deemed Superfund or hazardous waste. Superfund. And if people don't know what a Superfund site is, then
people in Pitcher Oklahoma do.
Exactly. And see how that worked out for them.
Yep.
And thousands.
Ask them if they've ever gotten their property back. Ask them.
Exactly. So we're talking about, and we've had news stories. We've been on the news. We've tried the press route. We've tried all of that. When we did the news, I think they thought it was just that one field. And I was like, no, go over to this other one over here. And they contacted me back and they were like, well, this is miles from that other field. And I was like, well, yeah, they dump it all over. And they usually come in at night.
Oh, that is the important part. They usually do it at night, or they do it very, very early in the morning while it's still dark. Mm-hmm. I wonder why they do it while it's still dark, Saundra.
They probably just like to get an early start.
Maybe that's it. They're just night owls.
The early bird gets the worm, Jenny. The early bird gets the worm.
Yeah. So at that meeting, Senator Shane Jett did stand up for rural Oklahomans, and he laid it all out. And I have some great video clips of that. And he basically said, so what happens if the federal government comes in later and says this land is contaminated, these farms are contaminated, and we're going to take all of these Superfund sites, and then you know what they're telling farmers in Maine? Your land is only good for wind turbines and solar. You can't grow food on it.
So say that one more time. Because don't forget, we had Jeff McComas on.
Right.
Jeff and Robbie McComas were on last Friday. Mm-hmm. And remember what Jeff said. I mean, I made a clip out of it because I felt like it was so important. He said, they may not even put up a wind turbine on your property if you sign that stupid freaking contract. But you know what? They'll have all the rights to your land. wind, solar, it's a land grab. They know that crap's not going to work. They know it doesn't work. It's a land grab. It keeps them from doing food because, oh my gosh, we've got Bill Gates's meat. What do we need a cow for? They just fart and release CO2 into the atmosphere.
Exactly. And this crap is more of the same crap, only it's literal crap mixed with industrial waste. And so they dump it. Yeah. And really, to be fair, we did make a pretty big stink about it, and they don't.
I get it. A stink.
Stink. Yeah. They don't really put it around us anymore. Like we've made a pretty big fuss. And, before the last election, I really informed people in Lincoln County, look, they're building multi-million-dollar homes around us here. We are the spot to be. And so they won't dump sludge around us anymore. Not just because of the stink we made, but because there's really nice big houses going in here and those people don't want it. And the value of the property is so high, people are selling off to these multi-million-dollar houses and developments. So now it's going farther east. They're hopping on the Kickapoo Turnpike. They're hopping on the Turner Turnpike, and they take it farther out to Lincoln County. And so we're contaminating more and more and more farmland. But Lincoln County is now getting wind turbines and solar if they don't stand up and get it stopped. And so what you're looking at here is thousands of acres potentially not able to grow food.
And let's make a point here, because if you did not see the video on Friday, you absolutely, it's a must see. Because if you ever thought to yourself, I don't know how I can stand up to these people, you need to watch that. Because I mean, it will absolutely, Robbie will tell you exactly how to do it and how they're getting it done. If you don't live in the country, if you live in the city and you're like, well, but I don't have to smell it around me, what do I care? Because you could be eating this crap.
Oh, yeah.
That's what you could be drinking it in your water. You could be eating it when you go to the store. So if you think it's not a problem for you, you're wrong. And
I wouldn't say could be. I would say you are. You know, I would say 100% you are. These chemicals are leached into the food in one way or another, especially if you go to the store. You have no idea where all that fruit, all those vegetables, all those things are coming from. You know, even regardless of whether they say organic or not, it's still going to be in unless you literally grow your own food and you control your soil and you control what's going on there. I mean, it's in you. It's getting there.
Because don't forget, people can say stuff is organic all day.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And one thing though, and I would encourage people to still get organic, because years ago, I guess the organic label considered allowing biosludge and humanure to be used and still call it organic. And they said, no, we better not. And so they made it a thing. Organic cannot use sewage sludge. Now, as far as they know. You know, like that farmer in Maine,
that's the trick, Saundra, right. Is I can grow something and tell you it's organic and fill out my USDA paperwork, and I can do all of that kind of stuff and be doing anything I want.
Yeah. Yeah. And then they come and test their produce. Oh, yeah. I mean, one of those farms was a produce farm, and their water, and this is what's really horrible, and there's so much horrible. Their water was coming up out of the ground with PFAS in it. So even if they brought in soil, raised it in their greenhouse, you know, sterile environment, they watered it, and then the plants took it up into them. Yeah. And then their plants were all contaminated. Yeah. So they were an organic farm.
Let me show a real quick example. This is at Home Depot. You can go buy it right now. This is literally in their organic fertilizer category. You know, this is Milorganite. This comes, and it's so funny. Right on the package, it says it's right out of the Milwaukee Sewage Treatment, you know, Center. It says it right on the package. But you know, look, let me show you one thing. You know, right here down. Oh, here's eco-friendly. It's eco-friendly, Jenny.
Yeah. So the bill with Shane Jett, it would have made them put basically like the warning on cigarettes. Hey, this could kill you. It would have made them put that on all those products so that the consumer had got to know.
Yeah.
And that's actually illegal. Like consumer, you have to tell the consumer what is in your product. I mean, I label my soap with everything in it, and I am a responsible person, but these people are exempting themselves from responsibility.
Yeah. Well, let me go through just a couple more of these pages real quick. So this is how they get away with it. So they say right here in the middle of this page, it says meal organite complies with federal and state standards for protection of public health and environment, blah, blah, blah. So it says it complies. So then you go to the safety page. So when you go to the safety page, now you come up here. This is the third page in on this. So it says, this product complies with stringent criteria based on EPA regulations, all this stuff. It's imposed on fertilizer. This is a fertilizer for product for health and safety, blah, blah, blah. So then they have another data sheet on top of that. So then you go into so then there's another page. So you go into this next page, and then that page goes into this page. Well, this is a 9-page safety data sheet. And on this sheet, it mentions cancer twice on this sheet, but I just wanted to bring this up because right here at the very top of this page, it says this is toxic to aquatic life. I mean, it says it right there in the first page. I mean, you could go read all 9 pages of this, but the point is, this is, people, even at their homes, they may go buy this as an organic fertilizer at Home Depot, thinking, hey, I'm doing a great job, and this is sustainable, this is eco-friendly, this is a good product. They're putting it right on their own, right on their produce that they're growing in their garden. So anyway, I just want to show that real quick, because if you read that, so I read the EPA side of this too. The EPA only tests for 20 different chemicals. That's it. Just the basic, like lead, arsenic, just the basic water tests that they do. That's the same test. So the other 3 to 80,000 chemicals, I guarantee you go put this stuff in a mass spec, you're going to get 50 to 80,000 different chemicals. So it's a complete just sham across the board. It's just so mind numbing that we allow that to happen. Sorry, I just want to show that real quick as far as that goes.
Yeah. That's totally awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then
now, Saundra, let me ask you a quick question. So down at the bottom of this, it says both of those bills were killed. Are that the one that you were talking about that gives them the? Oh no, the good bills.
The good bills were killed. The good
so we
bills
still have these bills protecting our.
The bill HB 2305 that protects the cities and that protects the farmers. No, we're not calling them farmers anymore. I don't know what word we're going to use, but it's not farmers. Those individuals who are accepting the crap, it protects them from liability, and it protects the cities, and it protects the company that dumps it. But it doesn't protect me. It doesn't protect you. It doesn't protect the neighbors. It doesn't protect the consumer.
It protects all the people that are making money off of it.
It protects the contaminators.
Yeah.
It protects the people that are guilty.
And these are our Oklahoma legislators who are doing this. Where is this? I mean, because the bills were supposed to have been all heard in committee, so there are only bills going to the floor right now. Am I wrong?
Oh no, you're right.
So this have these bills been passed yet by the floor?
Yeah. Well, not. So that one was heard. That was the Senate Energy Committee that passed it. And in that committee, Senator Shane Jett and Senator Dusty Deavers spoke up against it. Everyone else on that committee voted for it. All of them.
Now, do you think do they just not have any idea, or do you think they really know and there's an ulterior motive? I mean, are they really that uninformed as to the damage of this?
I think most of them are uninformed. And one thing I've seen, we've spent way too much time up at the Capitol. They will actually ask the senator, is this a request bill? And one of the senators, Rick West, I really like him. He said it was a totally different issue. He said, well, yeah, my constituents requested it. But what they meant when they said, is this a request bill, is one of the agencies requesting this bill? Because if an agency requests it, they don't even read it half the time. They just pass it They assume that it's good because that federal agency told them to do it.
Or the
And
state agency. I mean,
exactly.
it's a protection racket. Government is
sorry.
nothing more than a protection racket.
Yeah, no, I'm talking, I meant to say state agency. So in this case, when the executive director of the DEQ gets in the committee and says all the things he says, defends it, this is the reason for it. We have to protect our cities. Excuse me? I thought we had to protect our people and our environment. And that's why you're there, not the cities. If they're doing wrong, we nail them.
Oh, well, I'm sorry, Saundra. I don't think you understand the function of government. So let me lay it out for you. The function of government is, number one, to provide jobs.
Right.
So that's number one. Number two is in conjunction with number one, we have to steal your tax dollars and then give it to certain businesses that we like. Governor Stitt's just done that again to us because he didn't get enough with giving money to the car company that went out of business and then had to be federally injected and brought back to life. Now he's going to do it with solar. So now he's going to inject Oklahoma tax dollars into solar because, hey, it's good for us. It only kills birds. It only, causes cities to go and cropland to go up in flames and not be ever used again if it catches fire, which is, something that happens frequently. And then firefighters can't put it out. And I mean, but we're going to steal tax dollars from us to give it to these solar companies because hell, jobs. I mean, that's the primary function of government is, well, no. Primary function of government is creating jobs and then protecting each other.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, and you brought
I'm
up
pretty
the
sure
fire.
the Constitution says that somewhere.
Yeah. So back to the fires. Let's go back to firefighting foam. So firefighting foam is a major, major, major PFAS thing. And at that meeting, one of the senators mentioned we're having to phase out some of these really bad firefighting foams because they're killing firefighters. And we're going to have to get rid of that, the really bad stuff somehow. And so we don't want the passive receivers to be responsible for having to dispose of this super toxic waste. They're going to have to get rid of it somehow. So we don't want them to be liable. So my fear, and they recently dumped one out in Luther, not in city limits because we banned it in city limits. They dumped a load and it has a distinctive different chemical smell. And it is so chemically, we will drive around miles around it because I'm like, this is something wrong. There's something really wrong with that.
But that's what I thought about the last stuff they dumped out here too, was the same thing. It didn't even, I mean, biosludge smells horrible, but this smelled 10 times worse. And it did have some weird chemical.
And if I can make a point to that, Jenny, also, that smell is not just a benign smell that you're smelling. That's a molecule. Yeah. That's a man-made or chemically treated or whatever. You're smelling the actual molecule that's getting into your body. That molecule is going to, in some capacity, bioaccumulate in your body. You're not just going to automatically just smell it and then it goes away magically. I mean,
I should put on a mask.
Yeah, there we go. More mask.
You need a gas mask. You really need a gas mask.
Yeah, gas mask. A level 17 gas mask.
Right. So there's people out here that, think we're just being extreme and this isn't happening here because, there's no industry in Oklahoma that would be using anything bad in their manufacturing or putting it down the drain. But there already have been detected over the Garber-Wellington PFAS. Yeah. And, this particular one, they detected it in the spring-fed pond, they detected it in their well water, and they did not detect it in their rain-fed pond.
Yeah.
Well, and let me, because we're running over, we're at 1:10 already. So let me, which we knew we were going to do. I'm not worried about that. And we've got lots of lovely viewers this morning. We thank you so much. And please take this information that you're hearing. share it, share it, share it, share it. When this video goes away live, it will pop back up that it's shareable. Share it everywhere. We've got to get people to understand that this is just nonsense and it's terrible.
Yeah.
And then I got derailed by going into that little sideline about what I was going to say. Does anybody know?
Well, I do.
Okay.
That
Thank God.
6 days after that Senate meeting, making them, if this bill passes, and it's flying through everything is flying through with flying colors. Nobody's speaking up. 6 days later, the EPA put in these drinking water regulations on that nice slide with the water.
Well, I was going to make sure I should probably type that in. It's House Bill
2305.
Okay.
And 6 days after that energy meeting that Shane Jett spoke up against and Dusty Devers, and then on the other side, Representative Rick West voted against it, and I believe Dorn, but I needed to go check that. So on April 10th, the EPA put in PFAS drinking water regulations, and these are legally enforceable for all municipalities, and they are basically zero. I mean, I think it's like 4 parts per trillion, and science isn't my thing. I milk donkeys, but like basically zero. And
like when you say zero, that's not allowed to be in the drinking water.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And really quick, I mean, like next day quick, Oklahoma City and Tulsa both published their press releases of, our water is good. We've been testing for this for years. We're safe. We don't have it in our water.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, of course, they've been testing for years and they saw this coming.
Right.
And these little towns that have been having sludge dumped all around them for years are going to be screwed. Because to filter this out of Luther's water, of Jones, Arcadia, well, I think they're probably on, I don't know where they're on, but all these little towns that actually have their own water that they're pulling up from the Garber Wellington, they will have to test. And when they get those results back, because this gives them 3 years to test, by the time they test and get on the ball with this, that HB 2305 will have passed. And when they figure out, and when the rural people who live outside those towns start testing their water, and when they figure out their water's contaminated, they can't water their garden, they can't water their animals, they don't have water to bathe their children in, they won't be able to sue their neighbor that used the sludge. They won't be able to sue the company that did it to them, and they won't be able to sue the city because they tried to already exempt themselves. And they will if this goes through.
Yeah,
sounds
we're
like
going to have to.
Sounds like a crisis brewing that the government is going to have to step in and take over your land, take over all this stuff. I mean, that to me, that's what looks like is coming. But also, don't forget, at some point, the EPA is looking over all this stuff. And we know we've already seen like what the EPA has done with glyphosate and Roundup, where you rewind 10 or 20 years ago, well, not 10, probably 20 years ago, the levels were at such a low level. I mean, all the they couldn't even stop the contamination. It was so bad. So they actually had to raise the allowable levels. And that's how they get away with a lot of this stuff. So I can see in the future, Saundra, that they'll probably at some point, because you're going to have so much failure, probably in the rural side of this, like you're talking about, they're probably just going to have to raise those rates to an acceptable level because, they're not going to stop that biosolid industry in any capacity. So they're going to have to make it acceptable, at some point.
Oh no, we're going to make them stop.
Well,
I hope so.
We're going to make them stop. All
right. So, Oklahoma is already using tax dollars to pay for the new sewer and water system in the privately owned theme park in Veneta.
In the millions of dollars to take them water and sewer.
Awesome. Well, but again, Saundra, jobs. Come on.
Right. Yeah. It's for the good of the community.
Oh, God.
And we were told it would cost $100 million to upgrade Oklahoma City, to upgrade city water systems to be able to dispose of this without dumping it on farmland. Well, I happened to come across this little graphic from Brisbane, Australia, and they upgraded a city water system for $28 million. It uses the sludge, burns it, takes that gas, powers the whole plant with the gas, and then it's left with a biochar, and that biochar you can use to make concrete.
So here's the thing, though, and I want to make this super, super clear. The reason why this doesn't happen in America is because of the EPA.
Yeah.
So the EPA has said, and I think you and I talked about this years and years ago when we started, working on this topic. The plants will say you can't burn it because the EPA says that, you have to have certain scrubbers and whatever on. And so you're not going to be able to, you can't burn it here. So what you have is you have a 3-letter agency that of course is its own bureaucracy that nobody minds the store, right? They just do whatever they want. And they don't even know what they're doing. I mean, they have so many parts to that agency. Nobody ever knows what they were doing. And if they were smart, but they're not, but if they were, they would look into what happens at places like this and then use this to solve, because I've said that millions of times. Why can't you just burn this stuff? I mean, the heat could power something. I mean, why can't you just burn it? And every answer I've ever gotten is EPA.
But when you go back to that slide with a quote from the executive director of the DEQ, he said, there's a few, where is it? You can burn it in a very small number of facilities across the country, but there's inadequate capacity, and the cost would be enormous for everybody to have to send, especially like drinking water treatment residuals, if we tried to treat our drinking water for this. So we're getting
that is hysterical. So we would rather spend the money to remediate the water and the health consequences because, hey, we don't really care. I mean, we want to provide them jobs, but if we're providing dead bodies jobs, it doesn't matter. We're still providing jobs. So they don't really care about that. So they won't look into spending the money on the thing that could solve the problem. I mean, it's just outrageous. It's like you think maybe legislators are a specific type of person that goes into this job because they have 15 brain cells to rub together. I just don't get it.
Yeah. So I don't either. I'm appalled. I'm outraged, and I'm backed in a corner on this because I have to protect my farm.
Right.
And I have to protect my family and my animals. And at this point, if they put this in, all they have to do to shut me down is dump tons of hot sludge around us.
Yeah.
Come in and then say your water is contaminated.
Right.
And your farm is shut down. And they could do that because with current law, they don't have to tell you what's in that sludge. They don't test it for PFAS. They don't test it for anything. And that would sound conspiracy theorist if you hadn't been through what we have already been through.
Well, and I think, without going into all of that, because I think one day I'd like to have a podcast just dedicated to what the government has done to you. But I do want to point that out. I think oftentimes, the first real time that a big chunk or a chunk of Americans realized that the government wasn't our friend was January 6th, when you can actually get people just going to be in a place in Washington, D.C., and yet then they're arrested for being in a public building and held without cause. I think that may be the first time that people started kind of waking up going, I think the government may not be my friend. The problem is government quit being our friend a long time ago, if it ever was our friend. And I would have to say it probably wasn't, because nobody who steals from you, nothing that steals from you can be your friend. Mm-hmm. So, there is that. But I think people have got do it
or poisons you
yeah.
Good point.
Yeah, this is I want to make that point. This is toxic poison, period. That's what this is.
Mm-hmm.
Well, toxic poison that farmers are actually taking because they don't want to spend the money on fertilizer. on good nitrogen-based fertilizer.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
go ahead.
and those farmers include legislators. So if the legislators are using this, like Kevin Wallace, we've already seen, he's a legislator out here. And if he's using this, how can he actually vote to allow what's going on, to allow them to bring it in? Well, because he's making money off of it, essentially, right? So it's like the Shelley Zumwalt question. Well, I can go ahead and vote on it, even though, I actually am getting, there's a conflict of interest. I mean, I can't, sorry.
Yeah. Well, the smart ones don't vote on it. The smart ones are abstaining from this vote because it's passing without them voting, and they can all tell their buddies how to vote. And that's how this works. I mean, I have been informed that none of our bills will pass up there until things change. None of our bills with Senator Shane Jett will pass. Doesn't matter if they're the best bills in the world on sludge, nothing will change on a legislative level to protect Oklahomans.
Wow.
You have something down there, Michael. What do you have down there?
Well, I was just going to, in that EPA vein, I wanted to just show everybody, this is one of the best books you'll ever read, ever see. This is from Dr. David Lewis. He was one of the original EPA scientists back in the 70s when they started the EPA. And he's the very first, the biggest whistleblower. And this book kind of pertains directly to all the biosolids and all of the stuff. But he goes the detail. I mean, he literally said when he was coming out with this book, and he's got some other books too, but when he became that original whistleblower, he's like, I'm just trying to stay out of prison, but people have got to know how corrupt EPA is, how they're letting this happen, how they know all about this going way, way back. This goes back to, this biosolid really starts back in, like, I think he said 1993 or so. That's when they changed the EPA regulations. They changed laws to really start being able to process it and put it out there. But this book is an absolute must to just inform yourself and to just keep going on this subject. This is probably the best book I've ever read or seen on this subject.
Well, I'm going to have to get that. And I do want to point that out to our listeners. So Michael Grande has already turned me on to the best book ever. And I pimp it every time we possibly can. And I'll do it again. Killing Uncle Sam, which I have said, please read that book, Killing Uncle Sam. And I got that one from Michael Grande. So I'm definitely going to go right now and get Science for Sale and read that one as well. So there we go.
Here we
Killing
go.
of Uncle Sam.
You want to know about how this country works? Right here.
Gotta read it. I mean, I've been pretty awake, and that one was an eye-opener for me. Okay, so you mentioned this earlier, Saundra. This is the movie Dark Waters, and you were talking about this is about PFAS contamination.
Yeah, and ironically, it was a farmer that was the whistleblower, and I had a friend, she said, you and Walt are just like the people in this movie, and I had not seen it. You're just like the couple in this movie. So I started watching it. I was like, oh, we're this pretty woman and her husband, the lawyer and his wife. And then I got a little farther and I was like, no, we're the farmer that goes bonkers, and the crusty old farmer and his wife. And unfortunately, I think he died of cancer. So, and he was a whistleblower. And thank goodness for this. This story is an eye opener. People need to definitely watch this movie. And this is based on a true story. And Rob Below, he is one of the lawyers. I actually called a ton of on their website, environmental lawyers in Oklahoma. And they were all like, nope, can't help you. Nope, can't help you. Nope, can't help you. You need to call Rob Below. And I was like, if you have his line, I'd love to call him, the guy in the movie. So it turns out most environmental lawyers in Oklahoma protect the companies doing the yeah. But
nice.
Go back to the slide right before this real quick.
Okay.
Because this is the reason we are calling all the small towns to hear this out. all of the mayors, I've been calling mayors, most of them are not calling me back, surprisingly, and letting them know they need to be there Thursday night at the Luther Town Hall meeting, because I'm going to present all of this information and I'm going to give the towns an action plan, because we've tried the legislative route and there's currently too much corruption to get anything done politically. And that's sad, but that's where we are. So right now, everyone needs to test their water for PFAS and PFOAs. And we did about a year ago. And I think the Lord is just protecting us in our farm, because it was completely zero. However, I know people out here who are not as lucky.
Yeah.
I'm telling them they need to send a mailer official notice of the risks of biosolids to all residents, advising them to test their water for PFAS and to say no to sludge. And then they all need to file a lawsuit, a preemptive lawsuit, before that bill goes into law, before HB 2305 is signed, because they're counting on us being stupid citizens and not doing anything until it's too late. And we have got to wise up and we've got to act fast. And then, because this is affecting all of us, and our water isn't just our water, it moves, and we have to make sure we protect all of it. And from what I understand, PFAS, it's like plumes in the aquifer. So there can be a plume that's bad, and if you stir that up and move it around, then it can disperse. But right now, we hopefully don't have a huge problem. Hopefully there's just certain areas that have gotten hot sludge, and that's sad, but maybe it's isolated. So I'm telling them they need to ban all land applications within school districts to protect the children and the community, not just their city limits, and put a fine in of $25,000 per acre for any violations. Put all that money into upgrading rural water filtration systems for the residents, because they're not taking care of us. We have to take care of ourselves.
Yeah. No, that's true. So that's a great idea. So anybody who's watching, take this information to your city council meeting and talk to your city councilor about this, and get this on the agenda. Go speak at your city council meeting and talk about this. You can do it. Saundra does it. I've done it. Robbie McComas did it. You can do this. So absolutely. Okay. Well, yeah, they knew they did nothing. It's up to us.
Yeah. And I have one more thing to say about that.
Sure.
And this has been rubbing me wrong. There's a lot of people that sit back and private message me and say, somebody needs to bring this to light. Somebody needs to bring that to light. And I'll say, you do it. And they'll say, oh, I can't. I could lose business. Oh, I can't. They could come after me. I saw what they did to you. Oh, I can't. My son works for the city. He could lose his job. And then sometimes they'll say, but I'll pray about it. And I'm like, you know what? How many people stood on the sidelines, warriors stood on the sidelines and prayed for God to take out Goliath? David acted. And how many of them did God tap on the shoulder and say, hey, go fight Goliath. Hey, go fight Goliath. And I'll pray about it. God can take them out, but I'm not going to do anything. Yeah. Well, we're all sitting back and not doing anything, and somebody will do something.
Well, and I mean, you're absolutely 100% right. And I've said this probably 100 times on this program, but it's true. I think somebody did a survey one time about the number of people in any population that actually get involved with things. And it's usually about a third of the population will actually do something. I mean, I'll be honest. There's a brand new neighborhood out here where I live, and they built a brand new Edmond government school. And every day that I have to go that direction, I sit there and I watch Range Rovers, and I got behind a Porsche Carrera yesterday having to go into town coming out of this school district. And all I can think of is these people are either naive or just plain useful idiots. Because if you've got that much money and you choose to put your child in a government school, then don't know what to do for you or about you or how to handle you, because you clearly are an impediment to the rest of society. I mean, it's just true. At this point in time, you shouldn't have a child in a public school. And here's my other point, and which I always make. You had kids. Did you really envision when you had children that the whole idea of having children was farming them out to somebody else 7 hours a day until they're 18 years of age? So all I can say is you're either going to act now or it's going to end up biting you in the butt later on. You're either going to be sick from the chemicals that are in your food. You're either going to have your land taken away from you by the government because of the gunk that's in your land that you just are allowing them to do. You're going to end up having kids who don't understand how families work. They don't understand how sexuality works. They don't understand, and it's going to come back on you, and you're going to go, oh, why didn't I listen? Well, you should listen and you should act. And that's just my mother's speech for the day. So Saundra, do you have anything else to add here before we sign off?
I would love it if people would show up Luther City Town Hall meeting Thursday night at 6:30 and wear red, so I know they're on our side. That's kind of the color for farmers rising up against a lot of this around the world. So, wear red. Let me know that you're on my side and that you're there to support. If they
I'll
want
probably
to
wear my MAGA sweatshirt.
there you go. Yeah, you can do that. And if they want to speak, they need to get there a little bit early and they can share something. So, I'll be nervous. I get nervous. But I really appreciate everyone.
Well, Saundra, thank you so much for being on with us. You and we all owe you a debt of gratitude for all of the information that you do and all of the times you've been to the Capitol on our behalf and everything else. We owe you a debt of gratitude for doing that. So thank you for listening to God's prompting and doing the dirty work that so few want to engage in.
Yeah. Well, thank you all. And thank you for the prayers. And thank you for just encouraging us over the years. You're a good friend. And we wouldn't have done any of this without you saying, get out there and do something. So
pshaw. That was God. If I said anything, it was because he was making a puppet out of me. Tell Sandra. All right, Saundra. Love you, see ya, and we'll talk to you more later. And we do want to have another podcast where we talk about some things that the government has done to you, because I think once people do understand that this isn't without
repercussions.
Thank you. I couldn't even think of that word. Yes, then I think people need to understand this. So God bless you. I will see you Thursday night, but I'm sure I'll talk to you before that.
Thank you, Jenny. Thank you, Michael. God bless you both.
Talk to you later. Bye. Love, Saundra. I do hope, we had a lot of people on again today. I think people are finally getting the idea that government isn't our friend, and they're fueling these wind turbines. They're fueling this solar crap. They're fueling the crap because, hey, jobs. And we got to make it, we got to wake people up and make it stop.
Well, you made your mom plea. I'm going to make a dad plea. When I looked at a lot of the data, the actual mass spec reports on this biosludge, because I got into this when I moved to Edmond and I saw this huge wastewater bill, on my utilities. I'm like, wastewater? What is wastewater? So then I started getting into it and, finding out. So this, this goes back 15 years ago, 20 years ago. But when I started looking at the actual analysis of the biosolids or the biosludge, whatever, it's probably biosludge is probably a better term. But anyway, and like a mass spec is going to test for pretty much everything. You're not just going to have like the top 10 or 20. It's going to show an array of, 50, 60, 70,000 chemicals. One of the highest concentrations in several of these reports that I saw was atrazine. And we know, atrazine is an agricultural chemical. They spray it, in fields. It's like a weed. It's like a weed preventing chemical. Well, atrazine has been highly published. It's been highly scrutinized. Atrazine is the gender bending chemical. Atrazine is what literally they figured this out because there were so many problems with like frogs and things like that. You know, the frogs were changing sexes. So they had to figure out why all these things ecologically were happening around these atrazine runoffs. Well, that's what they came to find out, is this is another one of these chemicals like the BPAs and all these other chemicals that affect your actual reproductive system. Atrazine is one of the worst, and it affects boys much more than it affects girls. It makes makes boys have the chemical makeup, and it switches over from like testosterone to estrogen. I mean, it's pretty publicized, but atrazine is one of the most highest concentrated chemicals in these biosolids.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
I was going to say, you sound like, what is his name? The gay frogs.
Oh yeah. Alex Jones.
Alex Jones. I was going to say, you sound like Alex
gay. Well, it's true. It's true.
Yeah. Well, I mean, honestly, there is something, and lots of people will tell you that, especially us in the older generation. I mean, we've never seen anything like the sexuality issues that are happening in our generation today.
Yeah. It's full chemical assault. I mean, look at just the basic health. I mean, we're supposed to be the most advanced medical first world system. We're the sickest, period. I mean, there's so many neurological issues. Look at the entire autism spectrum. I mean, that's a chemical problem in these kids. Yeah. And I don't put the food supply as part of that major problem. I don't put that off in any capacity. I think it's a major, it's a major issue altogether, because you just don't see those problems in countries that have, you hate to say it, lower vaccination rates, more cleaner food laws, less chemical. You don't see those high spikes of all those neurological issues. Yeah. But we're under chemical assault 100%.
Well, but again, let's make sure that we're pointing the finger. This is a government allowed, and in a lot of cases, a government assisted situation. Yeah. So again, we've got government not protecting us. All right. So it's about time for us to get off of here, but I do want to talk about what we're going to have on Friday. So this is going to be a very interesting, we're back to our election series, our 2024 election series. So we have a poll inspector who recently had a run-in with, an issue with in his county, and he's going to come on. His name's Rick Moore. I've known him for so many years. He's going to come on and talk a little bit about that. So we're also going to have Wendy Dial on and our friend Amber Evans on. Yeah. There was Amber Evans, in my personal opinion, is, just amazing. She can read stuff and figure things out so quickly. There was a candidate contest, a contest of candidacy that happened last week at the Capitol on Thursday, and it was videotaped, and it was our state election board involved in this contest of candidacy. It was a video that I have just scanned. I haven't watched the whole thing, but I sent it to Amber, and I said, Amber, can you look at this and tell me what you think? And she came back with some comments about this video that were very similar to some that I had heard. And I think that this is going to be a fairly explosive situation. So she's going to come on with Wendy and talk about this. So we're going to talk about our state election board and election security in Oklahoma again another time. So those of you who are listening from the state election board, be sure to tune in. Anything else for today?
No, this is something that is completely unacceptable. We can't allow this to continue on. There's much better processes, just like she showed in that example.
Oh, the thing from Brisbane was amazing.
Yeah. There's ways to really do this. And you can see just how corrupt the actual government protection, environmental protection agency is. They're not protecting us or the land in any capacity. So, but like always, Jenny, it's up to us. We have to start getting loud. We have to start, if people, this is one subject that if people really just had even just a thumbnail sketch of how bad it really is, then things would change, I think, pretty quickly.
Well, and I'll warn you. Look into my eyes. I'm 100% serious. If they try to dump that crap out here around us again, you will see me on the news, because I will chain my ass to one of those machines. I've had it. I'm just done with it.
Oh,
so, I mean, and if I can do it, so can you. All right. Well, everybody, thank you. We had a great crowd on this morning. So appreciate you watching. Don't forget, if you like what we do, be sure to go to our page, rope2.org, and donate. We do have expenses. It does cost us money. It's a big chunk, frankly. StreamYard, they're great, but they're not free or cheap. And we have expenses with the website and our video editing software and all that kind of stuff. So if you'd like to donate to us, we would really appreciate it. Oh, also, because we're actually not a nonprofit organization, the IRS sucked $1,700 out of us this year to pay for taxes. So if you'd like to help us out there, please feel free, and don't get me started on that one. So rope2.org, we've got a donate page. Please go there. Or you can go to our Patreon. Go to patreon.com and then look up Reclaim Oklahoma Parent Empowerment. So thanks again for being with us. Anything else last minute?
Yeah. Make sure to go support Saundra at Luther. Is it this Thursday?
It's this Thursday. Yes.
So
tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night.
6:30.
At 6:30.
That's right. I'll be there.
All right.
Okay. Thanks for tuning in. We really appreciate you all. Be sure to share our videos, and we'll see you again on Friday.
Thanks.